Excellent.
Hang on, let me get some audio. I don't have audio yet. Hang on a second.
You're loud and clear over here.
All right,
All right, we good?
I got you.
All right, looking great. I love this background with the chest and the AK
Yeah, well, it's an AR. That's close.
or AR, whatever. And
Yeah,
we got some controllers over here.
yeah. I got my PS5. I actually put the screensaver up. The sun's coming through, so I was like, well, I'll put something cool on there.
I'm in the market for a new TV. What you got any suggestions?
I have no idea. I just go to Best Buy and I find one that's in my price range and just order it. I have like three, six TVs in my house, and they're all different.
Same, like I got a nice Samsung I really like here, and I've been thinking about just getting another Samsung, but damn, they're like 15 different choices.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I do with all my TVs now is I get Apple TV and I just plug it into the back and it turns it into basically an Apple device. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what TV I get anymore.
Yeah, kind of the same. What a weird transformation TVs have gone through since like, 2015 or something, I think is probably when streaming got as massive as it is.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
I remember TVs like that size used to be like $5,000.
oh,
You
I
know, now you can.
see the post I shared about the VCRs.
Yeah, yeah,
Jeez, man.
yeah. So what's going on, Brian Wilson?
Nothing, just the normal stuff, just
Yeah,
gym stuff, super busy always with that. Um and teaching a little history on the side, and that's about it, man.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, dude, how was this last ADCC event? Let's start out with
So
that. I got
yeah,
all sorts of things I want to talk to you about today.
okay, yeah. Trials. I've never been to trials before. I've been watching ADCC. I actually somewhere, I may have threw it away in one of the last moves, but somewhere I have like one of the first ADCCs on VHS tape.
Oh,
So something that was kind of surreal for me was I've been doing. So I don't know if you know this or your listeners know this, but the way ADCC works as a format is a little bit different. So normally the referee out on the mat, he controls everything. He gives the points and all that stuff. So ADCC has a table judge, has two judges and a scorekeeper. And then the referee, his job is to keep the action on the mat the best he can, reset the position, control if there's any kind of slaps or anything going on.
which makes
Uh,
that
so
makes way more sense to me, if we're being honest.
it it's such a better system. When you're trying to ref, you're trying to award points and you're trying to remember, well, did that guy end up on top? Was he on bottom? I can't remember who started that trend. Like, you're the table judge, all he has to do is watch the match, right? But so something that was so for the opens, I'm a primary judge. I go around and do those as a primary, then I have a secondary with me and a scorekeeper. Now for the trials, they fly in all the guys from Finland that have literally been doing every ADCC since the beginning. So they asked me, since you're out here for the Las Vegas Open, if you want to work the trials, you could be a scorekeeper, which by the way, for trials is the best job in the world. I have no responsibility. No one can yell at me for scoring points or not scoring points. I sit at the best seat in the house and I just issue the points, right? So something that was crazy was one of the judges, the two judges at my table were Finland guys, and they were both guys that I've got on like VHS tapes from like the early ADCCs. So I got to sit in the best seat in the house and watch some really really good jujitsu.
Well, so how did you first get started with officiating with them? How long you've been doing it for, like, well over a year, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of just an accident. So a buddy of mine, Jay, he is kind of the head organizer for ADCC for all the opens. Like he's at all the opens. He kind of organizes everything, runs it, and he's become a friend of mine. So last year, I saw the ADCC was coming to Dallas, and I was like, "Hey, if you're going to be there, I'll come by and visit and just say hi, buy you dinner or something." And he was like, "Well, if you're going to come by and hang out, why don't you? Do you want to work?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you need? Whatever." He's like, "Well, I'll put you." So the way the opens work is they source locally the secondary judge and the referee. So what they do is they find people that live, like say Dallas, they find people that live there, and they usually hire the referee locally because you can train him very quickly in one evening. And the secondary judge is paired up. with a primary that they have flown in from somewhere else that's done several events. So Jay was like, "I'll put you as a secondary judge." He kind of knew I already had a decent understanding of the rules, so he put me with a guy named John. And basically, my John's job was to be the primary judge and turn me into a primary judge by the end of it. So we did like 120 matches, and then I think Jay was like, "Hey, that was a cool experience. Let me know if you need anything else." And then a couple weeks later, I got an email. "Hey, do you want to be a primary judge at the Arizona Open?" I was like, "Sure." So I flew out and did that one, and then I did Orlando, and then I did Austin, and a couple more, and then ended up doing the Las Vegas Open and then staying for the trials. So just kind of like I, I just do it for fun. It does pay, but I stay in a little bit nicer hotels than I probably should. I eat a little bit nicer dinner than I probably should, and I end up spending most of my money. But for me, it's like being a part of the growth of the sport, and ADCC. I'm sure you've seen is kind of exploding with these opens. I just want to look back and be able to say, I was a small part of that. So,
When did the opens first start?
so the Dallas one that I worked, I can't remember. I think it was like the second or third one.
That's what I
So a
was,
little over a year ago.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. And that's a good model. Can you explain some of the key differences between like the ADCC rule set and because that we've talked about this and joked about it also, but the problem with grappling as a sport or jiu-jitsu or whatever you want to nationalize it as is that there's no unification in terms of a rule set or
Yep.
really a lot of the rule sets. It's like they're all going their own direction instead of
Yep.
trying collaborate to unify anything, which I don't even think unification is possible. but
Probably not.
but I do think that a great rule set is possible. But what do you think are some of the key differences there?
So I think the big one that sticks out for me, there's a couple key. One is, excuse me, you're not punished for creating action. You're actually rewarded for creating action. So if I'm in full mount and you're just turtled up, not doing anything, and I go for an arm lock on you, and I end up on bottom, I'm not punished. That's not a sweep. You don't get points for that. You don't get points for shelling up and then me going for something, creating some action, and then you get 2 points for it, which I think is ridiculous. So that's a big one. What it does is it causes guys to take risk. In jiu-jitsu, what do we always preach? Like, you should be good from top, you should be good from bottom. We're always trying to get jiu-jitsu competitions. Guys like us, I think, we want jiu-jitsu competitions to be as close as a fight to possible, right? So I shouldn't be punished for ending up on bottom, which I may not want to be on bottom in a fight, but if I went for an arm lock and lost it, I should have a good close guard. I should be able to get back on top. I should be able to stand up. So I like that, and I like the fact that it's very difficult to score. So meaning, a lot of the matches I judge hundreds of matches, and it's like a high scoring match is like 6-2, right? So
Yeah.
they have what they call the turtle rule. So I can blast W, land in full side control. If I don't hold you down for 3 seconds, and you can get to your side or turtle for 3 seconds, it neutrals out. Now there's no top and bottom. You can turn and sit guard. So it doesn't force someone to go from standing to feet with the exchange of points. You can get to the ground without losing points. So those are kind of the key things that I really, really like about ADCC.
Well, and the point spread is way different as well. Like what you're
Yep.
rated for, like Mount is like 2 points for ADCC, where
Yeah.
or in
Yep.
your other common organizations. Uh,
Yeah.
what are some things that are not awarded in ADCC that are commonly awarded? There's like, do they have neon belly points? Like,
They have me on belly. So I can go through the points real quick. So this is another one that I really like. So you should like this one too. So takedowns, there's two different points given out for takedowns. If you take someone down and it's inside a guard, so half guard, full guard, some type of guard, that's a 2 point takedown. If you take them down outside the guard, meaning you land in full side control or mount, that's a 4 point takedown.
mm,
So it rewards a higher, not really a higher amplitude, but it rewards taking someone down and being in a more dominant position,
Yeah.
right?
Cleaner.
So then the two biggest scores are guard pass and back take. So passing the guard is 3, the back with both hooks is 3. Um, and then knee on belly is 2 and mount is 2. So, and then the other thing you can kind of, this is one thing that I kind of like. If you have a fully locked body triangle or both hooks in, if you remove one hook or remove the body triangle, exposing the hip and allowing them to escape, if you do that for 3 seconds, you can put that hook back in and score another 3 points. So, guys that game the system, they got someone in a body triangle and a seat belt, they'll unlock it 1001, 1002, 1003, put it back in. Now they're up 6 points. Now they can kind of take a little more chances and try to finish with a submission. So, those are some key things that ADCC does, I think, better than anybody is in the rule set.
Yeah. And then too, differences in like the overtime and like how would
Mm-hmm.
like a ref's decision work?
Okay, so yeah, I can give you a full breakdown. We literally have a sheet of paper. We write on the left side red, on the right side blue. Every time it's what we call an initiation. So I'll give you a good example. This is something that people get wrong every day. If you and me are in a match, Brian, and I shoot in on a double leg, and I get a deep double leg, and you Uchimata me and land directly on top, boom, right? I mean, just great throw, and we pop up to the feet. If you're watching that match, you're going to go, I'm giving Brian Wilson an initiation. No. What you got was off of my initiation. That was off me creating the action. So as a judge, I might reach over and just make you a little mark. Hey, Jason initiated that action, right? So we're literally making these little hash marks. They don't count for anything. They're not points, they're not advantages. They are things that we saw that competitor initiated action. So what happens is we go all the way through 0-0. Overtime is always half the time of the regulation match. So if the match is 6 minutes, the overtime is 3 minutes, and we start them immediately. Meaning, when
Yeah.
that clock hits 0, the ref get up, ready, go. It's a full 3 minutes. There's no first to score. There's points the whole time. And if it ends up being 0-0, we do a couple things. It's not just count the hash marks, right? I mean, that's part of it. But we pull the referee off the mat. The primary judge and the secondary judge will load the ref first and say, hey, who do you think won that? He's like, I think red won it. I'll look at the secondary judge. I'll say, who do you have win it? He's like, I got red also. Now, if both those guys have red and maybe I have blue, I can override them. But most of the time, if two guys have a different opinion, we're going to go with that, the majority there. But a lot of times it'll come down to like, man, it's a boring, usually if a match goes all the way through overtime with no points, it's kind of a boring match. It may be 3 hash marks to 2, and it's like, I'm going to give it to red. But the last thing people screw up is people always judge the overtime. We judge the entirety of the match.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you and I have a match and we don't do anything for that first 6 minutes. And then in the 3 minutes, you just, throttle me, right? Or vice versa. I'm sorry. Say for the first 6 minutes, I just kill you. I just throwing you around like a rag doll. And then the overtime, you just dominate me. Well, they remember that last 3 minutes and they might give it to you. So that's where we kind of get into some debates with competitors and some debates with coaches because they don't understand what we're looking for. We're not looking for the biggest thing to happen. We're looking for who's creating the action. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah. No, that does. Um. Yeah. Yeah. No. And that's another thing. You speaking of that, like ADCC does not do cumulative points, do they?
No. So they award points for the essentially the biggest move. So the one that happens the most is a guard pass right to mount. So IBJJF, well, I don't know what their point system is, but ADCC that's 3 for the guard pass and that's 2 for mount. You're going to get 3 for the guard pass because it's the higher scoring move.
Yeah.
It's not for the move that you end up in, right?
That
So
would be
where
7 points in IBJJF
yeah,
or
that'd be over.
yeah.
Yeah, in ADCC match, you get up 7-0. I don't know that I've ever seen someone come back from that. Maybe with a Hail Mary submission at the end, but no, they don't stack points like that.
Interesting. So so these opens, they do seem quite popular. I don't really care for a lot of like particularly the one you mentioned, like the AGF rule changes. Where I will say the one that does make some sense to me is I'm less opposed to if I'm under side control and I hit like a turnover and now I have you in side control. Like I could see there being like an advantage or something for that, but I can also see the argument very strongly the other way. Like, have you been like, do you know anything about AGF's rule changes? Like,
Yeah. I follow a lot of their changes. So sweeps and reversals are the same thing in ADCC also.
okay, see,
So that would
all
yeah
about what
yeah.
do you think?
So
Thinking like a UPA or like a bridge and roll,
yeah,
do you think that should be awarded?
for sure. If I'm in the bottom, so in ADCC there's also a 2 point reversal and a 4 point reversal. So if I sweep you to outside the guard, so if I go from bottom to top and I end up in side control, that's a 4 point reversal. If I'm in, if I'm in half guard and I sweep you to top half guard, that's a 2 point reversal, right? Or sweep. It's essentially the same thing. Absolutely. If you're in bottom position and you do something to gain top position, that doesn't make sense why that wouldn't issue some points. I mean, you went from a worse position to a better position, right? Now the thing about ADCC is it's all about initiation. So let's say you're in top half guard and you wrap my neck, and then I sweep you to top. If it looks like you created that action with that submission, you won't be I won't be awarded points because you created that momentum by wrapping my neck and starting to turn, right?
Mhm.
You can't, if I hook your leg and I start the momentum of turning you over and then you wrap my head, that doesn't count. You can't throw up a submission as you're getting swept. You have to create it, which I think is the best way. I mean, I love that a guy can go for an armbar or a guillotine or whatever and not be punished by it. So yeah, absolutely. Reversals absolutely should score points.
So basically, the main thing that the main opposition I feel like that most people are opposed to with the AGF rule change is that you can, for example, go for an armbar from out and it doesn't work out, and that person comes up on top and gets 2 points, which is exactly what we said earlier. But like,
Yeah.
there's a few examples of that. Um, what about like escaping the back with hooks?
Nah, I mean, I don't think so. I don't think I guess there's a difference between reversing a position and escaping a position. If I oopa you,
Sure, for sure.
if I go from bottom to top, that was something. But if I just escape the back, I don't necessarily think. I think when you get into scoring too many points for too many different things, you're going to end up with these massive scores, which I don't like. I don't like 14-8 and all this stuff. Also, I'm sure you're getting to it, but the other one that's leading to is the giving a point for a submission escape. Like, you go for an armbar and you end up on bottom. I get 2 points. Or I get a point for escaping the armbar. Like that doesn't make. I don't like that at all.
It's contradictory. It's
Yeah.
they've, but I will give it to them, like, forward thinking. I think that they are probing to eventually legalize heel hooks in the gi, which I think at like brown and black belt, like I can't really agree with any argument I've ever seen why they should not be. Right? Like any of the arguments have like, oh, the friction or this or that, and I'm like, I can grab a hold of your fucking lapel and just,
Hmm.
like, there's so many other ways to use the gi to stop the heel hook, and these people that are anti heel hook in the gi are not thinking that way right now. So they're not
No.
facing the reality is I've got a whole lot of ways to use that gi in defense of entanglements, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know about brown belt. Brown belt, I think there's an argument for different things, but at black belt, you should be able to pick them up run them across the mat, throw them through the table if you want to, and I think it's 2 points. Like it should be a fight at pretty much black belt, or don't sign up and compete. You're at a professional level black belt. You should know how to defend everything. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And let's remark on this for a second too, because in ADCC you can slam if there's a submission, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So in judo, that got outlawed a long time ago because that, like, if anybody pulled guard or did a hikikomi,
Yeah.
they would just get the name of that throw in judo is called dakiaji. They would just like rampage power bomb them with the little
Yeah.
and then they're just like knocking everybody out, and they're like, well, we're not doing that no more. But that's another very real thing, like a stylization of the sport. It's like, don't ban guard pulling, bring back the power bomb. Like,
Well, it, there's a history of people coming into a sport, especially a combat sport, and doing something that changes the rules. You remember the early UFCs where there was headbutts were legal? Like wrestlers were coming in and double legging people and headbutting them and kneeing them to the head, and they realized, well, wrestlers, these high level wrestlers, are just going to come in and kill everybody. We got to eliminate this stuff. So they took out the headbutts and they took out knees to a ground an opponent. I mean, if you look back, that was all because of high level collegiate wrestlers.
dude, Pride had a way better grasp of
For sure.
rule set. Like, you can't kick it down to like that. That in itself, like, bring the soccer kicks back, stomps to a grounded opponent.
Yeah.
If I'm, do you
Uh,
controversial Henzo fight where he need
yeah.
from underside control?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll even give up a rule. I'll give up elbows. This is my opinion of elbows in MMA. 99% of the time, they stop fights because of cuts. They cut someone open, they bleed everywhere, right? I'll give up elbows. You can have elbows and let me have soccer kicks and knees to the head on a grounded opponent. I totally trade that. But getting rules changed in MMA, same way with ADCC, is very tough. You know, Mo talks about that sometimes on his lives. That just getting any type of rule change is very, very difficult. ADCC is pretty set in their rules. They like them the way they are. So I don't know that we'll see any changes anytime soon.
Yeah. Now, so I was kind of mentioning this. So you got these opens, which have some
Mhm.
popularity, drawn a lot of competitors. The trials, the amount of matches in the trials, kind of surprised me. And then these AGFs, like I saw some posts from maybe it's Baton Rouge. I don't remember where it was. AGF Baton Rouge, I think. But they had 12 mats, right? And then a whole bunch of other people were talking shit like, IBJJF's going to be here next month and only have 4 mats, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
what? So it is kind of interesting. It's like IBJJF is in these markets that already exist for like an AGF are coming in and in like a half-hearted attempt. And I will say I've been frustrated because a few of my guys, and like one of them's a master, but like he can't get any matches at any of the regional IBJJFs. He couldn't get a match at
Hmm.
Dallas. He couldn't get a match at Memphis. And he could, I will say, and he just kind of rolls it to the next one. But there's been like 2 or 3 recently where he couldn't get anybody in his bracket, and he had people in his bracket last year and traveled.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then he ends up having to go to like a Masters World to get a match, and he really can't get a lot. Like in the past, it was like I could get more Masters matches, but you could never get one at AGF. You'd always have to move down to adult, you know. And
Yeah.
it's fine for some people. This guy's like 44, I think. So, and he's fought down plenty of times, but he's just trying to kind of fighting his own age and belt level if he can. And
Yeah.
that's hard to do. IBJJF on the regional circuit on their opens are not doing as well as like an AGF or an ADCC. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are tired of IBJJF taking advantage of them. I think IBJJF charges whatever they want to charge. They don't care if you get matches. You know, they're super strict on their uniform policy. They're super strict on their where the coaches can be. And to me, you know, IBJJF is you know, it's still a prestigious medal. I think if you win, you know, like worlds or whatever. But to me, it's just turned into like McDonald's. Like if I'm hungry and I want something fast, I'm just gonna go through the drive-through. And to me, it's like they're just kind of shipping these people in and out through the line as fast as possible. Let's get to the next one. They don't care about the quality of the experience for the competitor or the coach, right? And
Mm.
that's another thing ADCC does. Like, I don't know, have you been to an open yet?
No, not yet.
So ADCC, there's a couple things. They allow everyone right up to the edge of the mats. I mean, there's coaches screaming and yelling, and it goes crazy. If there's any questions after the match, you come up to me. I'll explain why we did it, what the rules are. If you have a tactical question, like after everything, I can't like coach during, but like if you have a tactical, hey, like what would you do here? Yeah, I can. Mo and Jay and all those guys, they really, really, really want people to understand the rules. If you talk to a ref at IBJJF, I mean, you just get DQ'd and you just can't speak to them, right? So, going back to the low turnout, I think you're seeing people just tired of being treated like shit from my experience. And
There is that.
that's where AGF and ADCC has come in and like, hey, we see where we can scoop up some of these people.
There's definitely no customer service. It is like
Mhm.
standardization to the point of resentment.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I got that one. I mean, I competed in the colored belts and IBGFs a fair amount. Like I probably did a dozen, between opens, and I did pans a couple of times and worlds a couple of times. Houston, Dallas a couple of times. So I mean, I did several. But it was always like less of an experience overall. Even the competition was different. It was just a much more stylized version, right?
Yeah.
Of the same, because at that time AGF. I mean, you remember when AGF used to do no points for the first half like ADCC?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like so there were, but for the rules, AGF and IBJJF, like everybody that kind of started off would just copy IBJJF.
Yep.
But AGF kind of hybrid, they did some hybrid things like that in the beginning, or awarded body triangle points. And but yeah, I'm interested to see, like I do, and I would, if I was a betting, which I kind of am. I don't know. I bet they are going to fix it to where some of these things that people are consistently bitching about, like going for the mounted armbar. I think they'll change that. I
I
think,
think they will too.
yeah, I think that it's just like they're forward thinking. They try things, and if it doesn't work, they change it. Um,
Well,
so yeah.
something they've done is from what I don't know if they've consciously done this, but IBJJF was all alone for a while, right? They could treat people however they wanted. There was nowhere else you could go. It was like the only club in town. Well, now AGF comes in. I think what they did is in the beginning, they were like, well, we can just line up with these rule sets. And then they listened to everyone bitching about IBJJF. And if you notice, I think that was a lot of the rules they changed first. So I think what AGF's got going on for them is they're just listening to the complaints. And IBJJF is such a big organization. You ever heard of like a company? They have to email the owner to change the thermostat. It's like one of those things. Like you're just never going to get anything done. Where AGF, it's essentially two guys can just
So
make a change.
I own that company. Okay, I resemble that statement. Damn assistant
Yes.
jacking the AC down like while I'm out of town, drive
Yeah.
energy cost up. I'm a small business, mind you. Okay, I don't drive a Corvette.
Well,
Shoot.
they're not for everybody. But what I was getting at is like AGF, as much shit as I give Carlino, they do try to listen to the masses, and if they're loud enough, I think they make changes. I think they will continue to make changes. I just wish, like we talked earlier, we're never going to grow this. You're not going to grow the sport by coming out with your own hybrid rule set. I mean, my example is, let's say Brian, you never watched a football game in your life, and I loved football, and I wanted to get you into football. You came over to my house on Sunday. We watched a football game. By the end of it, you probably have a decent understanding of the rules. Touchdown is this, field goal is this. You have a grasp. I said, Brian, come back over next Sunday. There's another football game on. Completely different rule set. Like how are you supposed to get excited about it when you watch it 3, 4 weekends in a row and you still don't know what's going on?
It's kind of, yeah. It almost kind of like becomes like we're watching baseball next weekend. and
Yeah.
then
Yeah, essentially.
all the weekend after that.
Yep. And imagine if you are like an AGF and ADCC, obviously, if you're an owner of a business, you always think your business is going to be the biggest in the world. And I get that. And they don't want to copy ADCC. But imagine if they were to mirror the rules where people were like, oh, there's not an ADCC open in my area this month. There was the AGF. It's the same rule set. I got trials in 6 months. Man, I can go do that AGF and it gives me almost the exact same experience to get ready for one of the biggest championships in the world. I mean, to me, it's
Yeah,
a great rule set and it makes sense.
it's really just like that's a great point. I think if any two of the top, let's say IBJJF, AGF, and ADCC are the top three organizations in the sport. If any two of them unified and lined up their rules, because
Yep.
that really hasn't happened for more than a little bit at a time. And like I said,
Nope.
when AGF started, it was kind of based on IBJJF, but there were differences. So, yeah, that would if AGF and ADCC kind of like because that would really just be kind of. I mean, it would be a few changes, but these are things that speculation, but will probably never happen. But if any two of them did,
Yeah.
I think there could be some changes in the sport.
Well, I mean, I think you deal with ego. You deal with if I own a company, I don't want to copy someone else because that means I'm not innovating and I'm not smarter. But I mean, ADCC has been around for 20 plus years. It's as far as Nogi, obviously, it's the most prestigious title in the world to win an ADCC, gold medal. And now it's to the point where winning trials is probably harder than winning the world championship. I mean, it's you know 256 person bracket you got to get through. So to me, I mean, I think it makes sense. But like I said, when you got business owners, that there's a lot of pride there. But I think it would help grow the sport tremendously if someone would line up with ADCC and not be like a junior league to them, but like, hey, this is like, just another way to prepare for the ADCC World Championships. Get ready for them. So
So, since you are kind of like coworkers with Tom DeBlask, could you ask him
yeah,
about that seminar that he was
I
going
will.
that
Yeah, I will. I
what is
seen
it
him
about?
at trials, and I didn't get to talk to him. I was going to ask him about that seminar. Uh, Still hasn't happened.
Yeah. Well, you know, what do you do?
Yeah, no, he's not. Like I said, I was going to ask him. I didn't have time. I was getting ready to set up, but I'm sure it's going to happen at some point. That'll give me a reason to go back and see Caleb and
Yeah.
Mike. Mike's going to probably tune me up. I've been talking a lot of shit about
I know.
IBJJF and his medals don't
I
matter.
was thinking about him earlier when we were talking. He came down not this previous Friday, but the Friday before, and we trained. And that yeah, Justin, he was the brown belt master who can't get matched at BJF. That's who I was talking about,
Yeah,
and Joel. So the
yeah,
four of us trained for like 3 hours, and then went and had some lunch. But it was
nice.
um, so. One thing I wanted to bring up that I think is interesting. I think it's way more interesting than some of the other stuff I see happening, like this task-based games approach and stuff. But your gym where you train at, Magnus,
Hmm.
correct? Which
Yep.
Carlino also trains there, which is just an element.
Used to.
Oh, he doesn't train there no
You
more?
don't know that. You don't know this story.
Oh no, lay it on me. Can we
So,
talk about it on the podcast?
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Put this out so the whole world knows. So I messaged Carlino and said, "Hey, I'm moving to Dallas." Like I had no idea where to. I knew I was moving to Dallas for work. I didn't know where I was going to live. I said, "Hey, do you have any suggestions?" He said, "Man," because he kind of knew I'm a leg lock guy. I'm a wrestler, and I like nogi. He said, "Hey, the school I train at, they wrestle like they have two wrestling classes a week. A lot of our rounds start from wrestling. Heavy leg locks. They got a lot of good leg lockers, and it's like 6 days a week nogi. I'm like sold. I'm there, right? Drove there, trained a couple nights. Told my realtor, "Hey, this is the town I want to move in. This is where my school's going to be." Found a house. I have not seen him. He literally quit the week I moved there. Has not trained there since, not one time. So I remind him often that I moved to town and he literally quit because I moved to town. So yeah,
Intended. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. But anyway, go on.
Okay, so I saw I guess y'all's head coach, he was like standing at a chalkboard or a marker board, and he's,
Hmm.
hey, like this is how we do things. Like we like assign projects or homework to people, and we
Yep.
list all these people's names. And he was like, what I was fascinated by, and I kind of encourage this with our competitors, particularly, but people like Joel, is look, there's this stuff that the gym is not good at, right? Like
Yep.
every gym has specializations, and when you have specializations, you have deficiencies, right? There are going to be things you are not as good at. So, like for example, we didn't wrestling was not even a sanctioned sport in Arkansas until like 2010, 2009. So and then it had to grow from the youth programs over that first like 3 or 4 years.
Hmm.
So it's taken a while for it to be something that we have more and more people getting exposed to. So it's like you could say our school, even though like I've always emphasized singles and doubles and taught them to all my students, there's just like a difference. That's not one of our specializations. So, but he was saying like, here's things that the gym's weak at. Reverse de la Hiva, that would be another one for us. Like, like all these things would come up. And it's like in these, if you want to, I guess, like rank up. I don't really know I can't really remember what he was saying, but just like the way he laid out how y'all were doing that
Hmm.
was pretty cool. Can you explain in more detail?
Yeah. Yeah. So he does a lot of things unique. And I'm telling you, I started training in Muskogee, and then I moved to Arkansas and I trained there. And then I moved to Oklahoma City, trained there, and then now at Magna. So this is the fourth gym that I've been an official member at, but I've probably chained at 50 gyms across the country, right? And it's one of the toughest rooms I've ever been in. And it's not a bunch of like serious competitors. It's a bunch of guys like me and my age, and there's just younger guys there too. But he does some things that separates that no other gym I've ever been at does. So, no warm ups. If class starts at 7, everyone's on the mat at 7, 7:05, 7:06. We start class, right? You stretch on your own, do whatever you want. You're not shrimping up and down, not doing line drills, that stuff. I got my own opinion about that, but and then he does everything by semester. And one of the things that used to just drive me nuts, and a lot of gyms do it, is Monday's an armbar, Tuesday's a triangle, Wednesday's a guard pass, Thursday's a takedown. And it's like, how are you supposed to chain all this stuff together? So what he does is like a semester of half guard. Now that's everything half guard related. That's half guard sweeps, half guard submission attacks, top half guard, bottom half guard with a butterfly hook. It's just everything half guard for a semester. And then within that semester, each individual student will have his own thing he needs to work on. And it may not be half guard. And it's mostly for the colored belts. He has some, I don't think the white belts have it, but like for me, mine right now, like I think I can't remember what the semester is, but say the semester is, tax from mount. Right now, my personal thing is working traditional half guard. So while I will do the thing that we're working on in class, then when it's time to live roll, my job is to progress in traditional half guard. So the other thing he does, um, which I really like, is there's almost zero static drilling. All drilling is with some type of resistance. It may not be 100%. If you're a white or blue belt and you haven't seen this position, I get paired up with you. I'm going to let you work through it with minimal 5-10% resistance.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to move to 20 and then 30. And then as soon as my resistance level shuts you down completely, I'm going to back it down a little bit. I'm going to make you perform the move, giving 100% of your effort. And I'm going to back my resistance down to where 100% makes the move work, but 99 won't make it work. Right. And I think that out of everything I've described, I think the two things that have made his students so good is the working on something for a semester for a month, month and a half at a time makes them really good. And then I think no static drilling. All drilling has a little bit of resistance, and you're not just flopping around. Like that's not realistic.
Yeah,
Like if I go to
the beginner class,
yeah, that's what a beginner class is for, right? And I also think if you want to shrimp up and down the mat, that's fine. If you have been training, if you've been training longer than 3 months, you should not be doing shrimps up and down the mat. That's a waste of time. my big complaint is always like doing jumping jacks and squats. Like, I am paying you to teach me jujitsu. I'm not paying you to get me in shape. It's my job to be in shape when I come into the gym. It's my job to stretch out before class. I need you to, I need you to teach me how to do jujitsu. So Magnus does a really good job of this is what he says all the time. When your feet are on the mat, he is focused on skill development. That's it. He doesn't care about any of that other stuff. He doesn't care about, your mental thing, your stretching, your shrimps, all that shit. That's up to you. He wants to make you better at your skill set. And he's got a winning system in my opinion. It's a really tough ring.
So okay, that's an interesting approach, and that's one thing I like about like Hickson and a lot of his black belts is in the guys I've trained with. I don't think Hickson just calls it stress, right?
Yeah.
He's just like we're gonna add a little stress here, like then just like wrenches your fucking head off.
Yeah.
Like the first time I did a private with him, it was like okay, escape my headlock, and then he was just like I just added a little bit each time, and by like the third time he added a little stress, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, man." And
Yeah.
the next day I was sore because we just did like
Yeah.
all these headlock escapes. But stress testing is what
Yeah.
Chris Burns particularly calls it, and I like that. Like I like that adding the stress. I love situational rolling, uh,
Yep.
and I think there's a lot to be said for situational rolling. So like what are your thoughts on like this movement within particularly the Nogi community of this ecological approach?
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, a lot of that came from wrestling. I grew up wrestling most of my life, and one thing when I started jujitsu, I noticed we didn't do back then at my first school, and a lot of schools still don't. Is in wrestling, say we're working double legs, we may drill with no resistance, like I'm just going to double leg you, for 10, 15, 20 times, and then we're going to go live. And how we go live is coach would blow the whistle, I would take a shot, I'd get in deep, I would stop, he'd blow the whistle again, and we're going live from there. Meaning your job is to try to stuff a pretty deep double leg, and my job is to finish a pretty deep double leg. And essentially, that's what we're doing in jiu-jitsu now. Is like right now, if we're working half guard, you and me, I'm going to get in top half guard, and Magnus is going to have some instruction. He's going to say, bottom guy gets the underhook, or top guy gets the underhook, and he's got bottom guy flattened out. Right. So if the game is I've got you flattened out, my job is to pass your guard or submit. Your job is to sweep. And once that position happens, then we start over. And I think that is really one of the things that helps develop skill, because if you're just drilling half guard sweeps on me with no resistance and you're newer and then you go into a live roll, how many times you have a student come up to you, man, I tried that move tonight, it didn't work. It just didn't work. Well, yeah, you're drilling on a non-resisting opponent, then you're trying on a purple belt. Like it doesn't work like that. So I think resistance training, training with training specific positions, especially positions where you're not in a good position, is key to developing skill.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I love doing that exactly how you just described it. Like let's say we're doing escaping side control. I'm gonna start if I get a reversal or I come up, break you over, whatever, I get out, recover my guard even.
Yeah.
I'll reset and we'll do 2 minutes of that, and then we'll switch bottom and top, and then we'll switch
Yep.
and do like 3 rounds of that. Right.
Yep. So
They shorten the rounds down a little bit to like 2 minutes because but you still end up with a 4 minutes of work before you
yeah.
go on to a new partner. But I do enjoy that. And then another thing is like I've been simulating a bunch of things that like will force partner switches. I got this from actually two different people, but like we'll do pummeling drills, and every 15 seconds you got to find a new person.
Yeah.
Like or I'll do a sit through and then on you, then you'll do a sit through on me, and then we got to go find a new, but do like 5 minutes of that.
Yeah.
It's
So
different, you know.
what we do is we pair up in groups of three when we're doing that type of drilling, and it's usually top bottom out. So if I'm on top of you, half guard, and I get the submission, you're out. Now I'm on bottom. The third guy comes in, he gets on top. If I sweep him, then I stay out. I get on top at that point, and then you do it that way. Winner stays in. One of the things we do, we don't do the pummeling thing, but we will do a drill where you and me are partnered up, and on when we say go, the person that gets double unders with hands locked or a single leg with a foot off the ground, I win, and then we start over, and we
Mm,
just do that. All we're trying to do is get to a body lock with double unders or a single leg with a foot off the ground. So we do lots and lots of drills that a lot of these drills, it's kind of 50-50 to start, and a lot of these drills you're in a really bad position. I mean, we do sometimes we'll do footlock drills where the other person gets to choose the position. They'll put you in a uh you know full oshigrami with a almost a locked heel hook, and you got to start from there. And you're going to get tapped 9 out of 10 times, and it sucks. And it's like, dude, I know I wouldn't get tapped if you didn't start in this position, but once you can get put in a very deep submission and start to learn how to get out, that's when I think, especially for the lower belts, your game will change. Like not being able someone not being able to pin you down and hold you down, and then someone being able to put a deep submission on you, get out. Once you build that confidence that you can do that, that's game changer. And that's kind of what Magnus really focuses on is his guys getting in really bad spots and getting out. It just makes him super comfortable, you know?
mhm. Yeah, no, that is key, and, I've heard, and just different people make a point about, like, Gordon's game is that he is focused on the late phase submission defense
Yeah.
as in a world where a lot of people wouldn't even, think that exists,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. You know, there are times like I've, been at different schools and, and show up and it's only white belts or it's only white and blue belts, and I'm like, okay, well, there's days where obviously, I'm sure the same way you just smash them, but there's days where like, okay, I need to get better. How do I do that? So I don't really flop around and let them pass my guard. But if they're doing something that's somewhat correct, I'll defend it just enough where they still can accomplish it, but it wasn't just flop to my back. And then they'll get my back, then they'll get the hooks in, then they'll get the seatbelt control. Then I'm like, okay, now we're somewhat even, because the skill set different. Now I'm going to start trying, and then I'll work out of it. Maybe they get me in an arm lock, and with this particular person, I know when my hands are gripped, this is when I need to start defending, and I'll see if I can get out. And then maybe with another person, maybe I let them get my arm fully locked and then I try to get out. And sometimes you get tapped and sometimes you get out. But I think it's very important to know if you got good, safe training partners, how far you can let things go and still escape. And fortunately, we've got some really good training partners. There's like, knock on wood, there has been almost zero injuries as far as we train. As much wrestling as we do, everyone's very, very safe. And I think a lot of it's everyone's very knowledgeable with the submissions. They're, leg locks aren't dangerous because everyone's really good at them.
Mm,
So, we don't have everyone's really good at wrestling. So there's not as many injuries. The main injuries I see, I don't know about you, are standing the ground. That's usually when the most stuff happens.
for
I
sure.
truly think it's because of inexperience. You don't know how to fall, you get weird scrambles you're not used to. And it's like anything else. The more you do something, the less dangerous it becomes. So
I totally agree. Okay, so we can make this our last major topic of discussion. So if Gordon is King Ryan,
mhm.
you're definitely the jester in that motherfucker's court. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. For
Like
sure.
I was gonna go with like Prince, but
I'm old, too old to be a prince, I think.
yeah,
I
definitely
like Jester.
definitely a court jester.
Yeah.
So man, what an incredible competitor, grappler, athlete. Have you trained with him any recently? I mean, I know you guys are just kind of what a couple hours away now.
Yeah, we're just a couple hours away. He invited me to come to Roca and train. I gotta find some time and I gotta find when I want him to he said I could come if he wasn't there. He'd just have to message John, but I'm like, I don't want to train if you're not there. But I have been so busy with work.
Ever since
You
Kid
know,
pumped Bush on or Budweiser on the podcast.
Yeah, let I want to get into that
We
before the
definitely
end of
got to
this,
circle back to that shit.
because I do have a lot of questions. A lot of people ask me about what I do and what my work is, but go back to Gordon. He did invite me to Roka, which is cool. That's an invite only. Um, I will go eventually, and I will by far be the worst person in that room. It's a small room, and they're all killers and they're all professionals. So I've been very. Also had a shoulder injury that's finally healed, so I'm feeling a lot better. But no, I haven't trained with him recently. Trying to think. I seen him in Arizona a few months ago. Got to talk to him a little bit. He's not looking very healthy right now. I think his stomach is probably as bad as it's ever been. He's lost a bunch of weight. And I know ADCC is coming up, so I'm interested to see, if he ends up doing ADCC or not. I think they do. I want to say they do a 12-week camp. So August. So he's got a couple months to get healthy before camp starts. So we'll see. I will definitely update you if I get to go down there and train with those guys, though. But no, I haven't got to train with him recently.
Yeah, I know. Has he done any seminars recently?
Yeah, he did one in Las Vegas. I wasn't able to attend. I was working the event late. You
Oh,
know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I assumed that I assumed that you would go, but yeah, I could see like those that had to be a chaotic few days. I was looking at the scene
oh,
and just
it
talking with
was.
Kyle and stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy. I've never worked like an AGF or another event. I mean, this event was I think 11 or 1200 competitors, and we got them done in 12 hours with 16 mats. So it's pretty good. It was really, really. I mean, I've worked like 6 or 7 of them now, and every one of them is better than the previous one. A year ago it was our first one ever, so it was like, all right, let's figure this shit out. And it keeps getting better and better and better. But yeah, his seminar literally was probably 30 minutes in when I got done. I was like, I'm tired. I got to work all day Saturday and Sunday, so I just went back to the hotel.
Yeah, I had a guy on just a couple of days ago, and I'm dropping the episode tomorrow. Bill Jones, he's a Pedro Sour black belt, but he went to a Gordon seminar somewhat recently. He was saying, and he said Gordon set out on the mat for like over 2 hours after the seminar and
Hmm.
answered everyone's question.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. So funny story. I did black belt conference at Inferno last year, whenever that was, and it was maybe it was maybe a couple weeks before that. I got to do a really small seminar with Gordon. There was like 20 people there, and I asked him a question because I could not find any instructional on this. He finished Herberto Jimenez with with an armbar where both feet were over the shoulder. He had no cross face with the feet. It was in it, and to me that was always a lost position. It was like once they slide the feet off, it's over. And then before this seminar, I saw uh, one of his training partners on some flow footage do the same one in practice. And I was like, okay, I got to ask him. This is obviously working. So I asked him at that seminar, I said, well, what is this? And they call it a shoulder sankaku. So it's a shoulder triangle, essentially. Because they changed the braking mechanics on the arm, it allows you to do this position. So something that was really cool. I went to that seminar, asked him that question, and he showed it to me. I was like, okay. And I went back home and I started practicing on all the white belts and the blue belts. And I was like, okay, this works pretty good. And then I went to the seminar. Well, the night before the seminar, they did open mat. So I was like, this is one of the main things I want to show because Gordon hasn't talked about this yet. So I want to be able to show this at the seminar, and I know it's going to come out eventually. So I hit it on some people at the open mat, and then I showed attacks from mount. And one of the very last things I showed, and this was on Sunday, I showed that shoulder senkaku that he showed me. And then that night he had that match on W Nova's last match, and that's the submission that he finished the guy with. And I had probably 4 or 5 messages like, "Oh, that's the same thing you show." It kind of looked like I set it up, like I knew it was coming. I had no idea he was going to do that. But I thought that was a pretty cool experience to teach that. And I gave him credit. I'm not a guy that steals stuff. In the seminar, I was like, listen, Gordon showed me this at a seminar. I've been hitting it practice. It works. You guys, I just want to give it to you. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I did give him credit. And then like 4 hours later, he hit it in a professional match. So it was pretty cool.
We shall call it the Jason Ryan armbar.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you know,
So
I could call it that for sure. You
you
know,
could. Yeah, I'm big on giving people credit. I hate. I've seen. I watch all his DVDs and John's DVDs, and then when a DVD comes out, it's 2 or 3 weeks later, month later. I see somebody I've never heard of with an Instagram reel showing the same technique. And I don't know that they're passing it off as their own, but they're not giving credit. And I know they haven't been doing that for years. So it's like, I like to joke around and have fun. Also, if I learn something really cool, I'm going to give the person credit for it anytime I can. I didn't invent anything. Everything I have, I stole from some people. And if I can remember who I got it from, I'll always try to give them credit for it.
for sure. No, for me, that's the footnote. That, and
Yeah.
I even explain that to people. I'm like, you know, this is where I got it. It's, you know, I've used it for this long. Like I provide
Hmm.
a little history of the technique sometimes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
And
important.
I also tell people this is the way I do it. And when I ask people that are new, like newer white blue belts, say, do me a favor, do it exactly how I'm showing you. And then once you kind of master it, I want you change, feel free to change it however you want. Because I'll see a technique from a brown belt or a black belt. And I go, man, I've been doing that same thing for years, but he's doing this part different. I'm like, oh. And then I take that move that I learned from someone else and I take a piece of it that I learned from someone else. And all of a sudden it's almost like a new move. Now I didn't invent it, but it's pieced together from several different people.
Yep.
So I think that's important too, is for the newer people, try to do it like your coach says, and then, you know, adapt it to your body type and your, whatever else you have going on. Whatever works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you exactly that way. So feel free to, play with that stuff.
See, that's what I was saying earlier. Excuse me. I've been trying to like work some of that into the drilling, right? Like
Yeah.
because you will have varied results. Like if you work with the same, like say you and I are drilling partners and we work with each other every class, and
Yeah.
then I only roll with the same four people every class, you know,
Yeah.
and there's just so many other body types and weights, and like you have somebody weigh the same amount, but one of them's 6 foot and the other's 5'8", and
Yep.
the sensitivity of the technique is distance position will be a little different. So like that's kind of trying to implement more drills where we switch partners during the is a part of the.
Yep.
I like what you were saying about 3-man drills. I do that sometimes, but typically more in competition training.
Yeah. Well, there's another kind of little hack. No one ever taught me this. I just kind of figured this out on my own. I, you know, I think a lot of us pick who we roll with. Sometimes they come to us. I do something I do something very specific when it's time to roll. I pick the hardest rolls first, and there's a reason. If I go roll with the white belts and the blue belts first, I don't really get tired, and I'm gonna kind of smash them, and I'm gonna be pretty fresh for the black belts. I want to be fresh with the black belts, give them everything I can, and then by the time I get to purple, blue, and whites, I'm pretty exhausted. If I'm exhausted, it's not gonna even the skill set, but it's gonna definitely bring my skill set down. Because
Sure.
if I'm really tired against a 200-pound blue belt, that's a different role than if I'm fresh. So I always try to pick the hardest guys first. That way I'm exhausted when I get to the less skilled people, which makes me work on my skill development even more. So that's kind of a little hack that I do in the gym.
No, that's certainly a good approach, for sure. Because I mean, if we had like I had 32 people at our class the other night, which for Russellville, Arkansas is amazing, and 5 of them were black.
Yeah.
One of them was Kyle Bain.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Yeah.
and we had like 5 or 6 brown belts and 5 or 6 purple belts and like 8 blue belts, and
Yeah.
well, it's nice being able to work with all the ranks, because I definitely remember several years of training when there just like was not that kind of rank on the mat, and in most gyms in this part of the country, like in this region.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think Magnus has it's either 12 or 14 black belts that train at his gym now.
wow,
So like on an average Saturday open mat, just a regular Saturday, there's at least 7 to 10 black belts on the mat. Like I can legitimately on a Saturday probably roll every round with black belt. Now it's because the other thing Magnus has going on, which I don't know if it's anything to do with him or the gym, but a lot of the places that I've been traveled to, once you get 4 or 5 black belts, they open their own school and they move off. And right now, every black belt he has is still there and still trains regularly and hasn't branched off and done their own thing yet. So, I mean, there's all the hard rolls you want, you know?
Yeah, we've had two black belts move, but they just, one moved to DC and the other moved to Little Rock.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's, our student retention has always been pretty good, just because I think it's just the culture of our gym is pretty, with Core and I, and like all the people we have that work here. It's just constantly are trying to improve things. So,
Yeah.
um, I think that, whatever. I
Have you
We
seen?
haven't had any creonches, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Have you noticed that this is something I believe? I think the coach or the owner can have influence on the culture, but once the student body gets to a certain level, I think the students dictate not really the culture, but the direction. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like think of Inferno years ago, when it was MMA, no gi, punches, kicks, and now you go there and it's all mostly gi, IBJJF, and that wasn't Caleb and Mike. It's like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. I think that was like the people that come through the door kind of steer you in that direction. You think that's accurate?
I do. Yeah, no, I definitely think, like, once you get in a certain like, to a certain mass, or the area that they're in, like the
Yeah,
tip of Northwest Arkansas, for example, that's the most centered location of wealth in the entire state, right?
yeah.
So
In the country, maybe, honestly.
yeah, I mean, it is booming. And
Yeah,
I think that just brings a certain type of clientele to them, that have a more expendable income, and um, or often the transplants. They're coming from other states because they work from all over, but they work for Duracell batteries or something, so they
yeah,
have to have an office. And I know several friends of mine, like yourself, that they live in Dallas or Fort Worth, or different states, and they go to Bentonville semi often, several times
hmm,
a year, just because their company they work for has a Walmart contract. Among
yep, yep. Well, and that's what I tried. I want to ask you this too, because this is what I've been telling Caleb is I'm seeing. I think we're all seeing a shift in jujitsu in the country. I think there's definitely a shift to no gi. There's definitely a shift to competition, and I think Jim should be ahead of that, not behind that. Something Magnus has done is he noticed his no gi classes were 35, 40 people, and his gi class was just starting to shrink, and he just basically went 6 days a week no gi. And I'm wondering you know, are some gyms going to be left behind because they're so traditional and they want to, stick with 4 or 5 days gi and I think it leaves an opportunity for someone to come into town and say, hey, if you're wanting to do ADCC, if you're wanting, because the thing is, if I Google jujitsu and I see an ADCC highlight, the guys that are making money, it's in nogi, right? And I see these big highlight reels, and then I walk into a school and I see a bunch of people in pajamas flopping around. I'm like, that's not what I saw on YouTube. This doesn't even look like the same sport. So I'm wondering, do you see a shift that you're going to have a shift in your gym, or do you think other gyms are going to start shifting like that?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely been some growth in popularity. Like, we've always done about 50-50 gi and no gi, and we still, like, I don't have a 50-50 split right now, but we have two morning no gis, early morning no gis, and then we have two later evening no gis, and then we have an open mat, which, like, people just roll whatever, and I've
Yeah,
seen some, like Inferno, I know they were doing like a gi and a no gi, like two different types of open mat. But, like, we've always, like, when I started at the first Inferno with Mike and Caleb, there was no gi program, like,
yeah,
for
yeah. That's what he
first
told me.
couple of years at least. And so like I just kind of always had this open-mindedness towards no-gi, you know, like to me, like my gi style even is more, I don't know, it's like I will do things specific to the gi, but like not really. Like it's more like because I
Yeah.
started no gi, I just like look at the gi a little differently, I think, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that that comes like with the way I do my classes and stuff. And that's not to say that we don't sometimes do like a spider guard or something, but I definitely think that the things that I don't like about gi are these just highly stylized aspects of the sport, you know, and if you take out like the lapel guards and stuff, like that's a version much more in line with what I admire about what we do, you know.
Yeah.
And if it went more that direction, I have no problem with that, you know. And like I have no problem with gi or no gi. It's just really, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's to me, as long as we're doing jujitsu or we're rolling, we're grappling, whatever you want to call it, I'm down. It's really what the consumer wants to an extent,
Yeah.
you know. Like it's like what you were saying. Like if the consumer comes in and the overall culture, uh, internationally or nationally is moving that direction, the consumer is moving that direction. If you don't move that direction, and we've kind of as a business have been pretty good about trying to stay ahead of things like that, you know. But you know, you can't predict the future either. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always been a big anti-gi guy. I still hate it. I was told when I started training, I was like, you'll love it one day. I still hate it. Actually, after I got my black belt, I think I trained at Raiders another couple weeks, maybe before I moved, maybe a month or something like that. And then after that, I've only wore it maybe 3 times since then. That was over 2 years ago. I'll put it on again when it's absolutely necessary. If I got to do a seminar or something to show up in it for Caleb, I'll do that. But outside of that, I don't even know where my gi's at right now, to be honest with you. Still hate it, can't stand it, think it's pointless, but I could do another 2 hours on that.
laundry day's got to be simpler for you too.
It's much simpler. It's much simpler. Yeah, I do want to talk about my work. Like I said, I get probably, I'd say I get quite a few. The main DMs I get are ADCC stuff and like, what do you do for a living? Because I post like like Prime stuff like this pops up, and this is a popular item with Logan Paul, and they're doing all these partnerships, and people are confused on what I do. And then I was very vocal when the Bud Light thing came out, so I kind of want to explain that if you don't mind. So,
For sure. No, this
um,
is great. Like I definitely wanted to get into this because I did watch that Kid Rock was on Joe Rogan, and I was like,
mhm.
"Damn, this has got to be great for business for the things he,
Yeah,
you know."
yeah. So I have worked for the same company since December 2nd, 2008. And it is a family-owned company. A lot of people don't understand this. So if you go to anywhere in the country and you walk into a store and you buy a Anheuser-Busch product, you either bought it from what we call a WAD, which is owned by InBev, which is owned by St. Louis. That's owned by them, or you bought it from a family. A lot of families own distributorships and they distribute Budweiser products, right? So this is a family-owned company since 1979. They started with like 7 employees. Right now we have almost 400. So in two of our locations, one of them is Muskogee, Oklahoma, one of them is Lowell, Arkansas, which is Bentonville, Arkansas. We have Anheuser-Busch products. Now, we have a total of 12 warehouses. Only two of them are Anheuser-Busch. The rest are non-alcoholic products. Alani Nu, Prime, we have a whole portfolio of items. But the core of our business and the foundation of our business was Anheuser-Busch. So when this came out, it didn't directly impact me. I was in Texas, but it's my company. And what bothered me about it was, first of all, the way the story was spun was completely false. It was spun that this Dylan person was going to be the face of Bud Light, blah blah blah. What Anheuser-Busch did is they had what they call micro influencers, and those are people with like, I don't know, it's like less than 10,000 followers or less than 100 something. They don't have a ton of followers, and they had like 200 or 300 of them. Every single one of them got one can of Bud Light with their face on it. They sent them all. hundreds of them, right? So what somebody did, somebody saw Dylan's Instagram post. Oh, Bud Light's sponsoring this person, right? That's the new face of Bud Light. I mean, think about if Bud Light sent me a bottle with my face on it. What story is going to pick that up? No one gives two shits. But this person with
This
all the
this podcast would pick that story up. Okay.
yeah. So they got picked up, and I mean, people were boycotting it. And I'm never drinking Anheuser Busch again. You know who that hurts? You know who that hurt? InBev. I mean, obviously InBev took a hit, but they were a $50 billion company, and now they're a $45 billion company. It hurts the merchandisers that people like us pay 17, $18 an hour, where he was getting 8, 9 hours a day. And then all of a sudden overnight, he's getting 6 hours a day, and he's got to go buy soccer cleats for his kids. That's who you hurt. You didn't hurt the big bad wolf, Anheuser-Busch. They got billions of dollars. You hurt the guy trying to pay the electric bill for his family. That's who hurt. And then, so obviously I was vocal about that because I saw who it was impacting. It wasn't impacting. They're not going to shut Budweiser down. Budweiser's too big. They're not going anywhere. They have thousands of brands. So anyway, when it gets to my job, I'm the general manager. So they have we have about 400 employees now, I think. And out of the 11 warehouses, not all the warehouses function as a working warehouse. Some of them are just satellites. So they have a working one in Oklahoma City, Lowell, Arkansas, Muskogee, Tulsa, and then down here in Dallas. So there's the owners of the company, and then they have one, two, three. They have three general managers. So one guy does Muskogee and Tulsa, one guy does Oklahoma City, and I'm the general manager of Dallas. So essentially, my job is a lot of things. But if you walk into a store and you buy one of these products off the shelf in our territory, that's because our sales team went out and sold that product to the store. Our warehouse team picked it, loaded it on a truck. Our drive team went out and delivered it and stocked it on the shelf. So essentially, I work for a privately owned distribution company that was founded with Anheuser-Busch products, 45 years ago. So that's what I do. I sell, and obviously Prime being one of our big brands right now with Logan Paul and stuff. That's kind of where all that stuff falls into my life. So hopefully that clears things up for people.
Yeah, yeah, great explanation. So, do you think that, in terms of PR, do you think that Joe Rogan podcast with Kid Rock was kind of a turnaround on the PR? Because there was a lot of negative PR and cancel culture bullshit.
Yeah.
Which I feel the pendulum swinging back the other way on a lot of that. I feel like a lot of people are just fucking over that shit. But but I was like, when I saw that podcast, I was like, oh man, this has to be great. Like the things he's saying right now are the things that everybody wants to hear about this, like the conversations he had with the executives at the UFC and stuff.
Yeah. So from my experience, what I have seen with cancel culture, there's one big mistake you can make when you start to get canceled. I've seen if you come out and apologize, the people that were going to cancel you are still going to cancel you, and the people that were going to support you are now going to cancel you. So Anheuser-Busch didn't really come out and apologize, which I thought was actually the right move. The only thing I've seen that the Kid Rock thing probably helped a little bit. The Bud Light deal with the UFC and Dana White coming out and saying, listen, you know how they employ 50,000 Americans, and of that, 5,000 veterans, and the Folds of Honor deal, that helped a little bit, but really it's time. Someone else has to get canceled and take your focus off of it and go do something else. I mean, that's really what I've noticed with Bud Light, because I can actually dig in and see these numbers. What I notice is, obviously there was a big drop off, and then it was started to flatline, and then it started to come back a little bit. And there's just a new normal with what Bud Light sales are going to be. I think a lot of people stopped drinking Bud Light and started drinking other we saw a big shift to other Anheuser-Busch products. So Bud Light did this, and other stuff did this, and it kind of evened itself out. So, yeah, and a lot of guys were like, well, here's the 4 portfolio. Don't drink anything, but most people, another interesting thing I think you will find interesting is what we noticed was Bud Light in the grocery stores was way down, and in the convenience stores was not down nearly as much.
I can see
The
that.
The theory is I don't want to. During the cancel, I didn't want to put Bud Light in my cart and drive around the store with it, but I still want Bud Light, so I'm going to pull in the store, grab it, and run to my car real quick because I don't want to cancel Bud Light. I still want to drink it, but I don't want anybody to give me shit for it. So it's all. I think cancel culture is super toxic, no matter which side of the spectrum you're on. I think it's basically a bigger version of a Karen getting on Facebook and complaining about her neighbor's dog barking. Like, go talk to your neighbor if you got a problem. If you want to cancel something, just don't drink it. You don't need to announce it to the whole world that you're not going to do it. No one gives a shit. I don't give a shit. So, it's like if I go to a restaurant, I eat a bad steak, I just don't go there anymore. It's pretty simple, but
For real.
so
Yeah, damn. Well, bro, this is I'm glad we finally got to sit down and make this happen. It's been great catching up with you and
for sure.
talking a little jujitsu and business.
Yeah.
So anything exciting happen in your immediate future? You want to plug your Instagram or anything if anybody wants to follow you?
Yeah. Glock underscore guy 9 millimeter is my Insta. No, I think the next thing I got is I can't remember. I think I'm going to I've got like 2 to 3 ADCC opens to work, and then I'm going to the World Championships as just a spectator. So I bought tickets like everybody else, and we sit in the stands. That's going to be that's going to be the biggest grappling event that we've ever seen in the history of the world. So I would encourage everybody to not only watch that, but find someone that you want to get into jujitsu and have them watch it with you. I took my wife 2 years ago, and she doesn't care anything about jujitsu. Doesn't She loves it because I love it, but she doesn't watch it, doesn't care. She was literally on the edge of her seat watching the whole thing. So that's the next big thing I got coming up is ADCC Worlds as a spectator.
I'm
Like I said, I would.
going as a spectator. I w- I've got to be in Vegas like in the first week of July, and then I'm going
Mhm.
somebody doing Masters Worlds again. I'm going to go coach Mike also. Um, so like I want to go, but I got to like turn around and go back like a couple weeks later. So like I'm up in there, and if I want 3 trips to Vegas in 6 weeks, but I do want.
It's it, yeah, Vegas is not a place. I don't understand why people live in Vegas. Vegas to me is like a place you visit. You don't live there. But man, I tell everyone it's kind of like going to a UFC. Like I've been to a few UFCs and they're great. It's better to watch it at home, the production and everything. You can see all the great angles. But I would suggest if you got to go to one ADCC World Championship, just to say you've been, just to experience it. I mean, the crowd pops and the excitement. I can't explain it. It's nothing. It's like nothing I've ever been to. It's similar to a UFC. It's. I'll tell you the difference. Excuse me. A UFC event, it has the same excitement as the ADCC World Championships, but the crowd is not as knowledgeable. During the finals, during the gold medal matches, you can literally hear a pin drop in that place. And a guy that's digging for an underhook for 2 minutes will finally get the underhook, and the crowd will explode. That's how knowledgeable everyone in that crowd trains. Like if you go to a UFC, 99% of the people
Like
don't
600
train.
people scratching
Yeah,
around you.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the old pride fights back in the day. There'd be 50,000 people and you could hear a pin drop. I suggest everyone try to go if you can. It's only every 2 years, so you don't have an opportunity that comes by all the time. And, it used to be on a different continent all the time. So the fact that we're going to have three in a row in the United States is a big deal. And, I don't know how long Mo's going to do this. So, if Mo gives it up, in 2 years, hell, it may be in Japan or something. So
It's a great
I would suggest going if you can, for sure.
bet. Yeah, right on, bro. Well, man, hopefully we'll see you soon, one way or the other. And man, it's been like I said, it's been great, and we'll have to catch up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, take it easy, bro. We'll see you.
Appreciate you. See ya.